this is where everybody walks away and says it's over, and it's like generally the best time of year to trade.
Hey, welcome to Hedge Heads, where we discuss the commodity markets, hedging, and anything related to trading futures. Remember, the risk of loss in trading commodity interests can be substantial. These are opinions only and not trading advice. While no one knows where the market's going, we're not afraid to share some ideas. I'm Ryan Tunkseth. He's John Prishman.
Well, John, it is the middle of July. It's very summery out there. Technically, I'm on vacation. But
I want to be on vacation from this heat. We finally got heat, and I don't like it on day one.
We have one day of mid-80s, and John's done.
It's already, where are those 70s all summer? I miss those already.
Yeah, I'm a 50s to 70s type of guy myself, too. But, the crops probably don't like that. Don't we need some heat units, John?
We need heat units. No, it's coming. It's summer, and it got warm again, just like every summer. So the big news this week is the big drop. There's always one day every summer where it just kind of looks over. Like it's kind of a mysterious day, usually out of the blue. Last year it was we were in Grand Rapids, and I think it was June 19th, maybe, where it reversed and closed ugly, and you just knew something was up. That was yesterday, where everything was up. What's surprising to me is why everybody's surprised by what's happening. We rolled into the spring with some of the worst numbers we've had on paper in a very, very long time, and a lot of news services weren't agreeing with that. And it is the USDA's numbers, what everybody trades. Irregardless what your opinion on it is on the numbers, it's best not to fight them. You will have more fun in the markets trading if you consider what the USDA is saying. Like the numbers can be wrong, and you can make money off the numbers being wrong. Like I like to go with deferred spreads, stuff where if there isn't the corn bushels out, which I think you had a conversation with a guy that they don't believe the bushels are out there. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I would say that's I have twofold statement on that. One, I mean, you and I talked to a lot of farmers across a wide area. So last fall, everyone I talked to said, "Oh, the harvest is terrible." And then I asked them how they did. "Oh, we were up on bushels this year."
Yeah.
And then I said, "What are you doing with them?" "Well, they're getting stored."
Yep.
Pretty much to a man, everybody said that exact same thing. "Oh, the harvest is terrible." Well, we were 20 bushels over our average per acre.
Yep.
And we're going to store those extras.
And the fact that everybody had the same plan, or a high majority, and they passed on $5 or $4.90, and decided with 2.2 billion bushels that this time it was different, it probably wasn't the best decision. Actually, the last 2 years in a row, it's been the same thing, where harvest has been by far the best price. And what's different about the last 2 years is it's unusual for that to be the case, but it actually looked like that was going to be the case, and then of course it was. Beans, on the other hand, didn't look like that at all. They look like we're going to be awfully tight this spring. Store your beans and then let go of the corn. But it didn't play out that way. Just everything bearish. And I think it was 3-4 episodes ago when you asked me to try to get something positive about the grains, and I struggled. And here we are today. There hasn't been anything but the corn exports being what the USDA is projecting or slightly ahead. And outside of that, I can't think of one positive thing that's been happening in grains. I'm sure I'm missing something.
Well,
but a lot of bad news.
I mean, my comment on that, and to the person that I recently talked to saying the bushels aren't there, they aren't there, that might be true. It's not going to show up in the price today. And two, we're not farmers, we're brokers, right? And so the producer has to understand that they're long. They're not in the market, they're long. And we understand that too. Like, you have to be positive as the producer because you're already long the market just by producing the grain or the beef or the whatever, you're long right now, right? And so our viewpoint does end up being bearish because we're trying to help protect your long.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's a different viewpoint also in the way that we look at markets versus a producer looks at the market.
Yep. Yeah. And it was an easily preventable problem. So when I talk about hedges, everybody tends to think them in absolutes. Like, do I call the elevator? Do I not call the elevator? Do I hedge to arrive at? Do I not hedge? Do I sell cash? Do I not? They don't think of it like, hey, I could buy a $5 March put, a month and a half ago for 35 cents. So essentially giving yourself a, 465 floor worst case scenario, and then having your upside wide open. So that would be an in-between strategy. Hey, I don't know what the weather is going to be like, but worst case, I'm getting 465 futures. Best case, the sky's wide open for me. So it's not the main issue people have with hedging is thinking in absolutes, like it's either sold or not sold. I'd say 80% of the people out there operate that way, which is a really, really hard way to market. And there's been successful people doing that, but it's fighting with one arm behind your back, not knowing what your options are, and finding a balance is a huge mistake that guys make, and it was a bad one this year. A lot of guys passed on those $5 puts in March, not even December puts, March puts for 35 cents. And they, to save 35 cents, why not save 35 cents to lose $1? It's that attitude that has to change, where you're going to have to give up some of the bottom line if you want to see what the weather does and still participate if it's a good market, but be protected if it's a bad market. This year was very simple to do. Many people passed on it. I had a hard time getting that idea in front of people and people liking it. They didn't want to think negatively, like you were saying, and it's just a giant mistake. The markets fall a lot easier than they go up, and it's never going to change in commodities. It's always going to be that way. And then once you kind of accept that it's going to go both directions quite often, you'll start opening some more doors that will help you. But in my opinion, the put options in corn and soybeans this year, especially corn though, were vastly underpriced for what the fundamentals were. So you could have your cake and eat it too. You could make that guarantee, and then you could have your upside wide open with no margin calls. And it was about as black and white and about as easy as it gets this year. Hedging is never easy, but this year was as easy as it gets for corn. But a lot of people say, hey, that's 35 cents out of my pocket. I'd rather keep that. Let's roll the dice. And this just wasn't a year to roll the dice. The weather was pretty good from the beginning. Also, another trend you're seeing is, let's say there's a hailstorm. Now it's being amplified through many channels, which now everybody thinks Nebraska got hailed out and there's nothing left in Nebraska. And the truth is, it's very real for a number of people. But again, that's not going to add up to anything impacting the price anytime soon. Intended acres or planted acres are very different than harvested acres at the end. That's where those fall into those categories, the stuff that just got hit by hail. Some of that will actually come back and be fine. Some of it won't be. But these are the numbers that are in the middle of the winter that aren't going to help you at all. And people are hyper-focusing on all these small problems, and then it's magnified by all these news services, all these wire services on commodities. There's so much information flowing, and it's only making it harder to tell what's good information, what's bad information. And so guys are focusing on this, and they'll convince themselves either it got all flooded out or it's too stunted and uneven. You'll keep hearing what you want to hear, and you'll never do well in marketing. It's only getting worse. It's not getting better. Before, guys would have their DTN, and they get a little market story here and there, or they'd see one in the newspaper 3 days old, 4 days old. Nowadays, it's instantaneous. Hitting your phone, boom, boom, boom. You're being bombarded by information that's making you make the wrong decisions. It's clear as day that's happening, because many guys I talk to a lot less now. And when I talk to them, they seem to have this very disconnect on the news stories they're seeing and maybe what I'm seeing. Not that I have it all figured out, but it's still, you get used to hearing what you hear on the phones. and then you can kind of piece together whether it's widespread or it's smaller areas. And that's, I think we were talking about earlier, the network. That's where the network comes in, talking to so many people, commercial guys, producers, the guys they know, the neighbors they know. It starts to get to be a very wide network, and you get a very good feel for what's going on out there. And that's, again, where some of the value that you can't just buy, that's where we come in. It's just years of building that network and talking to people. And so I am good at figuring out what's real and what's not just by the sheer amount of people telling me about it. Again, sometimes it's not that easy. Like last year was very difficult. Probably one of the most difficult years I've seen because of the lack of rain. And no one had really seen that look for a very long time. So everybody was kind of saying, hey, this is bad, but still nothing like 2012. I mean, it was bad, but not like the drought year. That was far worse. But last year was a difficult year, but then again, it was sitting at $5 at harvest once the numbers started coming out, and people chose to store it anyway because I guess they thought that some news story that we didn't know was going to pop up, and it often does, but nothing really popped up, and we are where we are.
Yep, and I think it's only natural as the producer to market what you're seeing in your backyard, right? I mean, that's a natural reaction. Like all my neighbors got hailed out, I got hailed out. How much damage, there must be a price increase, right? Or everyone I know, or half the people I know. Yeah. A very common reaction.
Yeah, because it's tied to them financially, and it makes you hyper aware of things. And then their neighbors are probably going through something similar. So it all of a sudden starts to feel like more people. Then you read it on Twitter. Then you see it in the Facebook group, and you're like, oh, this is the big one. This is widespread, and you call your broker and buy corn. This happens pretty much every summer, actually. You get these problems compounding, and it looks a bit like a big deal, and then one giant rain kind of takes care of it all, and you're just not willing to switch gears that fast. Speaking of switching gears, now we've established a downtrend. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. Where guys really also don't do well in marketing is because I didn't get the highest price or profitable price, it's all over. It's all over till next year. And that's not true at all. You had inversions until right after the report, but you still don't have a lot of carry in the corn or the bean market. There's definitely things that I'm doing, of course, Colin, I would tell you exactly what I'm doing. Maybe like, picking up pennies that after a parade, it's not going to make you the big volatile giant home run swings, but you will make money doing it. Assuming the downtrend stays intact. I mean, of course, that can change. But even if it doesn't, it starts going sideways, there's strategies that you can employ that maybe you can pick up some extra money on. I don't want to get too specific because you can't make any recommendations. But I'm definitely, today I was busy doing that all day long today, where a lot of other guys are just kicking dirt. Oh, I missed $5. I give up.
But beans are off 50 cents over the last 2 days as we're recording this, right? Yep. Monday, Tuesday of this week. What is it over? Did I miss my opportunity? Give some things you might look at. I know you can't make a specific recommendation, but
yeah. So I moved. What I started doing, I have been doing, moving out of some of the higher price puts, and then maybe roll into lower price puts. Capturing the gains that you made, depending on the situation and whether it's a hedge or not, or just getting out altogether, deciding, we haven't even talked about this. One of the hardest parts of a hedge by far for me is knowing when to get out, when to flinch and saying, hey, I don't need the coverage anymore. So if you have hedges on, are we rolling out of some of the futures and looking at puts to if you think you're getting near a bottom to maybe, kind of take away some of that risk, hold on to those gains we made. So you're looking at all these strategies and you're going a lot of different directions. But what the majority of people do is give up because this is not the price they want, and they go to the cafe and complain about it. And it's just not what you need to do when you're marketing. The guys that I know that are good at marketing are like, okay, what next? They know it never ends. There's another train coming down the tracks. What can we do to improve this? Can we build a better price that we already, let's just say we We bought the 35-cent puts and we have 465. What can we do to improve that price? So they're already moving their feet and looking to improve on the 465 that they had guaranteed. How can we get it up to $5? Is there any way to do that? There might not be, but I mean, at least they're moving forward and not giving up. And then by the end of the year, these guys may have built themselves a better price and maybe even get 510. Now, I'm not saying go take a whole bunch of unnecessary risks. This is, again, where we would come in and help you make a plan and make sure that it suits you and that you know exactly what's going on.
Well, and it makes a big difference, too. If you have old crop sitting there right now, right, is a whole different thing than if you're just looking at the next year.
Yeah, I'm still getting a lot of old crop calls. I mean, it's truly amazing, and I knew it was trouble this winter. Just the sheer amount of guys holding corn, and you could hear it, you could sense it, and you could sure feel it in March when it really dropped. And then you can feel it now, which is really unusual to get as many phone calls as I'm getting asking what to do with old crops still. And these are guys that have been bombarded by my bearishness for a couple of years. So I can't even imagine the bulls out there that don't talk to anybody bearish. They knew better. A lot of guys did, but oftentimes it's worth holding on to some corn to see what the summer weather's like. But we're getting past that window. So the next thing is frost. I mean, is it real? Yeah, it's a real threat every year. And that could make a significant impact on the crop. So it isn't in the bin yet either. But, I mean, does it feel like it's going to frost overnight tonight? I mean, it's cooking out there right now.
Right.
Like, that's a ways off. We're talking, 5-6 weeks before you even talk about it?
I mean, I hope it's 6 weeks. I would like some summer. 6 weeks I know you're sick of 85 already.
Yeah, one day and I'm tired of it.
I'll take 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's and then September was really nice and it finished the crop really nice for everybody last year. Is that going to be a shortened window to where there's yield in question? And then you're going to have the guys that fight this every inch of the way saying nothing's out there. You'll see. And that's not the kind of market that you're going to do well in this one right here. The funds want to be short. That's the only bullish thing going is that they're so short. And that's when you're looking and reaching for stuff when you talk about how short they are. This is a time of year where they normally get short. Yeah, it's bigger position than they normally are. But just be aware how fast it could recover if something did pop up, and that's all you need to know about the short. I think they're very comfortable, and they look to add, in my opinion. It doesn't look like they're scared to me.
Yeah. Well, let's speaking of price movements, let's talk about cattle today. We're a podcast. We don't expect to be listened to today. We don't do regular market price updates, but cattle up this morning, took a big drop down in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, very disappointed for as much as corn's dropped and what you would have thought would have happened. And seasonally, we're very strong, especially this week. And it's really been the opposite. It's been very, very bad, ugly reversals, carrying a heavy discount to cash. And there probably is a news story out. I think it dropped in 15 minutes. I mean, it took off $4 in 15 minutes at a random time of day today. Box beef might have been a little bit weaker, but you're getting some nervousness because of what happened last year. I'm getting a lot of cattle calls on what to do. So far, there's been hedging done, at various levels higher than this in the past. Now we were just getting those levels again, so the calls were starting to come in again. And I was just starting to come up with plans, and then they kicked the legs out from under it. Now it appears underpriced, but you got to be real careful with cattle. Underpriced cattle can get a lot more underpriced. It just has a way of doing that. I like the way the fundamentals still sit. I don't have a problem with any of that. I'm not seeing, it's not a 2014 into 15 sort of deal. There's very light supplies, but like the big drought of 2012, it won't matter how many cattle are out there one day. The supply side is a very powerful market mover, but eventually the demand side is what's going to end this thing. So whether that's underway, I have a hard time believing that. The box beef hasn't really come off that much. But it might be, and it is the futures. It's not today. It's not tomorrow. It's what they see in the future. And cattle tends to be ahead of itself, so we'll see if it's going to blow over, or if it's just the beginning of the end. I think the fundamentals are too strong for that, but that's ended a lot of strong markets way before I think they should end. So
sure.
But there isn't anything that jumps out at me that would be alarming. I just really disappointing action with the corn being down the way it was.
Yeah, seasonally, you say. I mean, typically this is a bullish period for
yeah.
live
Everybody kind of has
cattle
fun before the 4th of July, and you tend not to concentrate on business. And now it's back to work and filling up those coolers and getting the meat back in the pipeline. So generally, this is a really good week. Very strong last 5 years for sure, and it's so far starting not good.
Okay, so we expect some headline from the action today to come out to explain it, but we haven't seen.
No, and I'm going to have to get to work on these hedge ideas. You know, like we're going to have to get stuff in front of people. I'm going to probably be getting away from margin calls if I can, the strategies with that. But I'll take a look. I mean, the options are pretty expensive in feeder cattle. A lot of guys go with the livestock risk protection. Not a huge fan. You can call me and I'll tell you exactly why. But the guys are protecting it, but it's still, it's kind of a questionable market what to do now that we're underpriced again. Last time it came ripping back up, and I think we might have one more trip up here, but I'm starting to get a little worried.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about cattle in the office the last couple weeks and watching them, and I mean, they have it's been reversals every day for the last 3 or 4 trading days, so it has looked different than last year.
I got my eye on the hogs. I got some plans for hogs. I like hog spreads and I like hogs. Hog options are great, but I got my eye on some spreads. I like hogs. If cattle keep selling off, there'll be some cattle spreads I'll be looking at too. But that's how I'm gonna bottom pick hogs. Without a doubt, I will be in spreads. I'm looking at some of the deferred stuff. There's one particular I'm in pretty much every year, so I'm tracking that stuff. So when I bottom pick a market, I'll start bottom picking with some bull spreads that seasonally work. So hogs got my interest. I do like that market, but I have made no moves there, and it's a pretty sick looking market. I think we're in the 70s in the fall, but it wouldn't inspire a lot of expansion at these prices. So I'm already trying to outguess what the market's going to do here and say, hey, maybe there's not going to be a lot of hogs next spring. We'll see. It just does not look like a tempting price to be expanding the hog herd.
Yeah. Well, October closed right at 70, so we're almost looking at 60-some cents in October. So
well, the cheaper feed's going to help, but I don't know. I don't think you're making a lot of money killing hogs at $69.
Right.
Could be wrong. I could be wrong. You could have a really good outfit.
I mean, still better price than they were in the 90s.
Yep,
so.
Zero.
Yeah.
When you counted the gas money that it cost to haul them into town, it was zero.
I know. We raised hogs back then.
Yeah, that stopped a lot of people from raising hogs, that little incident. That was the end of the widespread hogs on every farm sort of deal.
Yeah. Well, that's hogs, cattle, grains. Do we have a fishing report? I mean, we're almost summer doldrums for fishing too, aren't we?
Well, as they're biting a little bit, I got some secret spots, and I'm going to save it for the tournament.
Sure.
It's so secret, these fish don't know about them yet.
I like it.
But they look good, and they should show up eventually.
You're going to give us a depth at least. You got to give us a depth.
Saw a lot of minnows at 14 feet.
Wow.
Yep. So I'm sure they're around there. That's in one of the bigger lakes around here. I'm going to get out there fishing on Friday. As a matter of fact, I'll be out of the office. So I do a few fishing tournaments for fun, and there is one. It's Lund Mania. They fish for a Lund fishing boat. I think it's got a 40 horse on it. It's a nice boat. I think an 18-footer. And hard to win. We got second place one year, and we got ripped. We got gypped. The Wisconsin team, who knows nothing, happened into one of the best days of their lives to outdo us. That was probably 5-6 years ago. And the next year they came back to defend their championship. They caught 0, just like they should have done that day. But so we want first, but every year the younger guys get better at those electronics, and it gets to be hard to compete with the video game guys now, which is essentially what the tournaments have turned into.
Yeah, well, I fished with you. You do some video game fishing yourself. So.
I do. I got one the other day. It was I felt like one of the young guys. It's like, oh, this is how it works. But I just need they do that 5 or 6 times a tournament, and they're all 10-pound fish. Now, mine was a 20-inch fish, but as soon as I learned how to catch 5 10-pound fish in a day, then I can start competing with these guys again. I don't think I catch 5-10 pound fish in 5 summers, but
Right.
somehow I'm going to have to start doing it in one day because that's what these guys do.
Exactly. Well, John, it's summer. We're anxious to get out of here. You want to share how to get a hold of you to get some of those hot tips you mentioned?
Yeah, I'm definitely, again, one of the biggest mistakes guys make is the price goes down and then you give up. I mean, you know, it's not over. Generally, this time of year, trends stay intact. And if you want to know what we're up to, give me a call at 218-731-1578.
If you want to email us or maybe have topics you want us to discuss or just want to tell us we don't know anything, it's hedgeheadspod@gmail.com. Thanks, John.
Yep, no problem. It wasn't as sweaty as I thought it was going to be.